Welcome back. We're back here live from the expo in Vegas here at reInvent. Thanks for being here with us live on Twitch and YouTube and LinkedIn, wherever it is that you're tuning in from. My name is Fiona McCann. I am a solution architect at AWS in the public sector. I work with nonprofit organizations and I specialize in responsible AI. So surprise, a lot of the launches this week are going to be Gen AI focused, AI related, but they're not all foundation models, are they, Robbie?
I don't think so. I mean, what we're hearing from customers is that what enables you to derive the value of Gen AI is from the data itself. And if I remember correctly, as we think about data as a whole and some of the exciting launches that have happened over the past few months, we were on an episode together announcing Amazon Q generative SQL for Amazon Redshift.
We were on our weekly Friday OnAir show.
Exactly. Tune in every Friday. But that just represents one of many exciting integrations with Amazon Q. As you think about that data foundation, you've got storage, databases, data integration, and of course, database migrations. And that's what we're here to talk about today. We're going to talk about how data migrations are getting even easier. And we're excited to invite here John and Mike. Welcome to AWS OnAir. Thanks so much for joining us.
Would you mind just introducing yourselves for us?
Yep, certainly. Thank you. So, Mike Remitt, I'm a database migration specialist. My focus is on moving databases from outside AWS into AWS. And I've been working on the Database Freedom program, which is what this is all based around, really, since it was launched 7 years ago.
The database, can I cut you off there? The Database Freedom program.
Database Freedom is all about modernizing databases, breaking free from traditional commercial databases into cloud-native databases.
I love it. Database Freedom project. Got it. Awesome.
Cool. Hey, well, thanks, guys. My name is John Winifred. I lead product for DMS. Been doing this for a little while now, since the service launched way back in 2015. So I've seen it through its growth years, from being small and narrow focused through to the wide-ranging service that it is now. And like you mentioned, it's become a lot cooler today with some Gen AI features.
Very true. And just to lay the groundwork, how many times have you both been to reInvent?
Oh, geez. We're into double digits. Do we really want to go there?
Double digits. That's crazy. How are we, 11, 10, 11, 12?
Just 10, to be fair. It's not like, I've been here since the start, like some people.
And I've only been here 4 times, so I'm a newcomer to reInvent. Yeah.
Very nice. Well, this is my first reInvent, so I'm excited to be here and talk a little bit about this launch. So we have a schema conversion tool with generative AI. Let's just talk about that. What exactly are we launching today?
So, today what we're launching is actually integrated generative AI into the DMS product itself. So DMS has, a number of different components, but the bit where Gen AI really is adding value is in schema conversion. So DMS schema conversion is straight in the AWS console now. So you can go into the AWS console, go to DMS, and right into DMS schema conversion, and that's where you get this new feature that we have today.
Okay, so just so everyone here who hasn't worked with DMS before, this is our database migration service. If people are migrating data from one schema to another, they can use it, and it can automate that process for customers. But what did it not have before?
Well, how it automates the schema conversion. Like if we started some of the basics, when you're doing a database migration, you've got 2 parts. You've got the schema that you're moving, and that's sort of the structure of the database, all of the procedures and the functions and the packages that are in there. And then you've got the data that's in there itself. So when you first need to move that schema, you need to know how to convert things from one to another, if in particular you're doing what's called a heterogeneous migration. You've maybe started with one database and you're looking to go to another database type, and it doesn't really matter from what to what, although there's only certain combinations we support. But the idea being, if you are changing database types, you need to do a schema conversion, otherwise it's just not going to work.
Okay, so we're saying here a homogeneous migration would be MySQL to MySQL,
yes,
versus heterogeneous would be MySQL to PostgreSQL.
Exactly, exactly. So, when you're doing that heterogeneous bit, that's where you need to do the schema conversion. And, nobody really likes to do that for fun. And if you do, I'm going to question what you do.
You're maybe a little crazy.
I challenge that, but anyway.
Tell us in the chat. Tell us in the chat.
You do that for fun.
Yeah, Mike, I don't want to talk about your spare time here. But yeah, so look, you want to do that schema conversion in an automated way because, it's a laborious process if you had to do it manually yourself normally. So what we do with DMS schema conversion is we automate as much of that as we can possibly. And up until now, we've been doing that in a very regimented way, if you will.
Okay.
We have a set of rules behind the scenes. If you were using a substring function in your source database and it supported substring, for example, but your target database has something called substr. If I had to spell it out, it's not called string, it's substr. We had a rule that said, you have this converted to that. And it's a very simplistic example, but it's hard to have those rules cover every possible combination out there. I mean, people are very creative. The way one developer writes something is completely different to somebody else. So it's hard to get those rules 100%. And that's where Gen AI comes in and goes, we ain't seen this before, to use a bit of slang. Can the model help us?
Okay.
That's what it is.
So what we're saying is that previously there's been kind of a deterministic set of rules, if A, then B.
Yep.
And it can reach up to, what % of that conversion would you say?
I mean, your mileage may vary. It is always the answer, right? Because everyone's schema is different because everyone does things differently. But, over the years, we've seen 80, 90% average conversions. It does vary. We have some people that get 100%. And they're like, hey, hallelujah, I get to leave early for the day. But then we have other people whose, schemas maybe only get like 20, 30%, and they got some work ahead of them.
And so prior to the advent of generative AI, it sounds like the customer pain point was like accuracy and conversion.
Yep.
Is this working? The time spent in trying to deliver whatever that accuracy may have been, and then the cost associated with the operational overhead of even doing that in the first place.
Oh, for sure. And time is the big one, right? Because everybody writes their code right the first time, right? So accuracy is not a problem.
Of course, never.
Yeah.
I've never had a bug in my entire life.
But yeah, the time's the big one, especially, and this is a big one for customers. If you've got a customer out there that doesn't necessarily have the technical skills in-house to do the work, they're hiring consultants. And as we all know, that costs some coin.
Super cheap.
Yeah.
Exactly. The other challenge we see when you're converting the code the code that doesn't convert, the code that converts is not the problem, it's the code that doesn't convert. These typically are applications and databases that have been around for a long time, and the people who wrote the code don't work there anymore.
They're gone.
And as we all know, there's never an issue with documentation. We're very vigilant about keeping our documentation up to date. So you have these things that don't convert, and we don't know what they did, and we don't know who wrote it. But hey, we got to convert it. So this is where it really does help with the Gen AI.
So it sounds like the value of this product is in, that final 10, 20x% of data that, it needs to be converted. We're not totally sure how, because maybe we have outdated documentation. Maybe the people who created it aren't there. Previously, we'd have to do that manually. Takes a lot of time. Now it's automated.
Yeah.
I think you need to show us. Can we dive into a demo?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've got a demonstration set up here. I've got to put my glasses on for this. So one of the disadvantages of getting older.
Buckle up, folks. Buckle up.
So what we're looking at the moment is the console for our database migration service, and schema conversion is part of that. So within there we have a number of projects. I've got a couple here today. SQL Server, which we're talking about today, and also an Oracle one, which I'm demonstrating later on today. But we'll dive into the SQL Server conversion. So at the beginning, it's just telling me what it's converting. So our source database is SQL Server, that's this one here. The target is Postgres, so we're going into a Postgres database, and it's got all the other rules that we need to see in there. We don't really have time to drill into all of that. We can do later on, maybe, if time permits. But I want to get into the schema conversion. So looking at the schema conversion, we're now in the console, and for those people that are familiar with the schema conversion tool, this should look very similar to what they're used to. This is the service based on the schema conversion tool. On the left-hand side, we've got our SQL Server database, which I'll just drill down into. Hostname databases. We've got a couple of databases here. AdventureWorks. Anyone that's used SQL Server will be familiar with AdventureWorks, so I've got that in here. But we've also created a demo one specifically for today's event. And within there, I've got my schema, which has got loads of objects. Yes, a very imaginatively named Mike. I can't work out why I came up with that name, but I'm sure someone can work it out. Yeah. So, and in this case, we can see down the bottom here, we've got a 69% conversion of this demonstration environment. Which is, it's not the best I've ever seen, but it's not the worst either.
And this is just with the standard rules-based method, right, Mike?
This is with the standard rules-based method. So if we have a look in here, we'll go down and pick one of the roles at random. I would say at random, but actually it should be no surprise to anyone. I have tested this.
You practiced it? That's
I
crazy.
practiced it, yeah, I mean,
And so just to clarify, what we're doing at this point is that final 31% that wasn't converted automatically. That's what we're trying to convert.
That's what we're going to try and convert. So let's look at this view. It's not the world's most complex view. On the left-hand side, you can see the view in SQL Server. And what this is doing is this is something that maybe a marketing department would use, or maybe your customer support team would use. And this is looking at our top customers as measured by spend. So people who've spent money with us is what it is. But as we can see, conversion rate on this particular object, 0%. Didn't convert at all. So that's not good. We got to convert it.
You see? And you don't like to do that for fun in your afternoons and evenings, is that what you're saying?
I do it all day, every day. So, you know, you can argue that it's fun because I chose it as a career, but I don't do a lot of this at home. I'm going to be honest.
Anyone who's watching in the chat, has anyone here done this type of conversion? What are the hardest parts for you when you're doing this manual part of database conversion?
Yeah. So, looking at the action, so whilst we were just chatting there, I just clicked on the action item so we can actually see what the problem is. And this is one of those catch-all errors, the 9996. Anyone who's used schema conversion or the schema conversion tool will be very familiar with this issue number. And it's basically us throwing our hands in the air and saying, actually, I don't know, which is really handy because it sort of gives you no pointers as to what you should be doing. It's telling me what the name of the view is, but I've drilled into that anyway. But in the report, you'd actually see this section with a whole load of things that fail to convert with this issue. So where do you go? Well, the answer now is we've got two options. We can go through the actions in here and say convert from the actions, or we've got this new button which has appeared on the top here on the right hand side, convert schema with generative AI. So this is what has been enabled overnight, I believe, as this product has been launched. So if we click on that, we're now into the conversion box, and we've got this new section in here, convert the schema with generative AI.
And I'm not prompting this with any additional documentation. It's just
turned on. It's there available. And at the moment, you can see it's turned off. So we've got the ability to select this at the object level. So I can choose to use generative AI just on this object. But one of the things I probably should have shown you before I went in here, actually, is we can do it at the project level. So I can go into the settings button here, and right at the top here, we've got convert with schema with generative AI. So if I choose to select that, everything within this schema will now be converted with generative AI. But anyway, let's go back to the schema and we'll convert it, and we'll see what happens. So this is going to run for a while in the background, so talk amongst yourselves while this is happening.
Well, we've got one thing here from the chat. I know Fiona asked how you use a database migration service, but we've got a shout out. Walter McGuire says a huge congrats to the DMS team. So, you know, say hello, tell us where you're coming in from, tell us how you use DMS today. And shout out Mark McGuire.
Thanks, Walter.
Walter McGuire, sorry.
Walter McGuire, yeah. Yeah, so well, we work together, obviously. We no, good colleague of ours. So
there you go.
is a colleague or is he a partner now? I lose track.
Anyway, so what's happening right now, Mike? Like, with it's sitting here processing. What's happening?
So in the background, what's happened is it's trying to do the deterministic conversion, and that's come back with, actually, I don't really know what I should be doing.
Right.
So now it's doing a probabilistic conversion. So what it's doing is it's going down to the model that we've got at the back end, and it's saying, based on the query that I'm sending to you, have you seen anything like this before? Can you give me a clue as to what we should be doing here? So it's going down into the back end. It's doing loads of checks and conversions and analysis, and it's coming up with what it thinks is going to be the best solution to the problem that I presented it with, which is it's now finished. We've now got 100% conversion, so which is always a good thing to see.
That's my favorite number.
That's the favorite number. So if we have a look at the action items now, we can now see that it hasn't actually said, I've solved your problem.
Got it.
What it has said is, I think I've solved the problem. I've used probabilistic algorithms to come up with the solution that I think best meets your needs. And we put this issue there because we think it's right.
And Gen AI is always non-deterministic. You can't 100% bet on it.
No, the deterministic is the rules-based engine from where this has come. So this is the add-on that does that last 10 to 20% that we've been talking about. So it's saying you need to validate that what it's done meets your needs. Now, if we click down on here, and I'll actually expand open the right-hand side here. So this is the code that it's converted. And here we can see the issue number it's put at the top. But it's also put these markers in here to say, this is the beginning of where my converted code is. And if I scroll down, which, there we go, there's the bottom of it. And this says this is the bottom of it. So somebody who knows Postgres or knows the intent of what the code was doing, hopefully we've all got very solid test cases, because as we all know, everyone has very solid test cases, we'll be able to run this and make sure that it's actually doing what we need to do. Now, in the, because we want to demonstrate this has actually worked.
Please do.
You know, me sitting here saying, trust me, it's worked.
Trust me, it's fine.
Yeah, you know, I've been to these shows before.
Yeah.
So in the right-hand side here, we've now got this. This is the Postgres side I'm looking at here. So I can now say, apply this change to my database. Now, I'll kick that off running in the background.
Okay, and so this is the human in the loop aspect. You need to have someone come in and actually apply.
Well, it's more than that. You need to do more than apply. In the real world, because I've been head of development, I've had these roles in my past, and I would very strongly discourage someone from ever clicking apply in a console like this. I want my code controlled. I want someone to have quality assured it, to have tested it. So what you'd normally do is you click on here and you say save as SQL, which I would then give to my quality controllers and all the rest of it. But in the interest of time, I've just applied to my database.
Shortcut.
Shortcut, yes.
Well, stuff always works first time, right, Mike?
Always works first time. Every single bit of code I've ever written.
Doesn't know what a mistake is.
Funnily enough, I can still remember the first time I wrote a program and it compiled first time. Didn't run, but it did compile first time. Anyway, I digress. So we've got some code here. This is going to run in my SQL Server database. So this is going to exercise the view that we've just been looking at. And actually, one quick point I'll put in here, because we often get asked about this. When you're using databases inside AWS, what about the tools that I'm used to using, all the GUI tools? John was talking in his presentation earlier on about dbeaver, which is a very common tool we use. If my database is buried inside my application service, how do I get to it off my laptop? Well, I'm running all this off my laptop, and you'll see on this top here, all the techies amongst you should spot 127001. That's a loopback.
Okay.
I'm running on a Mac. To the best of my knowledge, SQL Server does not run on a Mac, yet I'm going to issue a command on my Mac to connect to my SQL Server database. I'm doing it all through SSH tunneling, how I actually do it all. But the reason I make that point is it gives me the ability to run tools against my RDS databases, my relational database services, in the same way that I always have. Even though they're buried deep inside AWS, it doesn't stop you using all the tools you're familiar with.
There you go.
Anyway, the other thing I should probably point out, in the background of this, I'm a huge advocate of infrastructure through code. All of this is built off of CloudFormation templates, so as well as building all this overnight, I've also run the Database Migration Service, the instance, the endpoints, and the tasks to move all the data, because moving the application is part of it. You've got to move the data as well. I did all that programmatically overnight. So the data exists in my Postgres database. So if I scroll down now and I run the Postgres command, so I log into my Postgres database. He says fingers crossed. Yep, we're in. That's always good. That's a good sign. And we will now run the same query in my Postgres database.
So this is the converted schema.
This is the converted schema. So if we have a look, let's put them on so you can see them. On the left-hand side, I've got the query that I've run against SQL Server. On the right-hand side, I've got the schema, the query that I've run against Postgres. And last time I checked, they look pretty similar. We've got some interesting names in there. The developers seem to have a thing for some of our famous...
Saying Harry Potter? Harry Potter seems to be a top spender.
I don't know how Charlie Brown got in there, I'm sure. But anyway, yeah. But the numbers are identical. So it's a quick and simple demonstration, but it shows you the power that generative AI can bring.
I love it. I do have one little question. So of that, portion of data that is typically or maybe sometimes doesn't automatically get converted, what is different about the data that gets caught by deterministic rules and doesn't get caught?
So the things that are most common get caught. It's like, it's a, you've got to put the effort into to convert things. So things that everybody does are most likely going to be caught. It's the things that are on the edge. An example I can give you, John used the example of string and str, which is, that's always going to work. But some of the edge cases, one that I've seen a few times now is the tochar. So this is a command, syntax is different between engines, but it's effectively doing the same thing. It's converting a data type into a character string. So tochar of an integer, that's going to work every day of the week.
Right. Everyone's doing it.
Everyone's doing it. So that absolutely works deterministically. But if you do tochar of a date string with maybe a time zone attached to it and maybe some funky formatting that puts the I don't know, the ST after the first and RD after the third, that sort of stuff, that's an edge case.
Okay.
That's something that we haven't coded for, and that will come up with an error. Now, Gen AI can look further than a deterministic engine. It can say, well, I can work out what you're doing there, and if you do it this way, it's likely going to work. You still got to test it, but it's much more likely to work. So it's those edge cases.
Well, a huge congratulations to you both on this new exciting feature, AWS DMS Schema Conversion with generative AI. Thank you both for joining us, AWS OnAir. And for those of you tuning in, stay tuned. We're going to hear from Julia White, our CMO and VP of AWS Worldwide Marketing. My name is Robbie Belson. I'm here with Fiona. You're watching AWS On Air.
See you soon.